My boarding pass flickered out in my palm, flashed crimson, then went dead. I didn't flinch. Not this time, not after all of it. I moved out of the queue while the people behind me sighed and muttered. The gate area carried the stale scent of burnt espresso and frayed nerves. Inside my chest, there was only a low, even vibration, like a tuning fork struck once and left to ring. I woke my phone. 2 new texts, both predictable, both designed to cut. Mom, enjoy the long walk home, failure. Dad, quit pretending you're broke. Take the damn bus like the rest of us. Their sense of timing was surgical, always kicking when they thought I was already down. And right there, wedged between gate 32 and a wall of overpriced cologne, the last piece of my plan clicked into place. Their turn to go white was coming. They simply hadn't been told the reason yet. I wasn't born this calm, this removed, this untouchable. Once I loved them, or believed I did. Once I swallowed their barbed remarks as teasing, their guilt trips as concern, their constant measuring of me against cousins and neighbors as some twisted form of encouragement. Back then, I chased the scraps of approval they held just out of reach. Everything changed the day I earned my college acceptance without their money or their strings. The moment I began constructing a life that didn't revolve around their approval, the masks slipped. What I saw underneath was envy so thick it had teeth. Resentment that curdled into sabotage the brighter my future looked. It started small, little jabs wrapped in jokes. Then came the fabricated crises that emptied my bank account, the accidental misplacement of paperwork I needed, and finally the night I heard them through the thin wall of the house. Let them crash, Dad had said, voice smooth and icy. They're getting too big for their place, Mom answered. We need to show them who still pulls the strings. Proof, spoken aloud, it didn't break me, it simply focused the lens. And focus is a dangerous thing in steady hands. I never screamed, I never begged. I just quietly removed emotion from the decision-making table. While they congratulated themselves for keeping me small, I studied. Banking regulations, consumer protection statutes, every account they had opened using my name, every loan they had taken to help me out. When the full scale of the theft came into view, years of secret credit cards, mortgages attached to my identity, something colder than fury settled in my bones. Purpose, they had spent 2 decades teaching me how to endure poison. They never imagined I would one day distill it and hand it back. For 3 silent months, I built the trap with the patience of a watchmaker. I collected every bank statement, saved every venomous text, had every forged signature notarized, sat across from an attorney whose eyes didn't even widen when I laid the mountain of evidence on her desk. Then I transferred what little money was truly mine, placed freezes on everything they were bleeding, and filed the reports. Fraud, identity theft, unauthorized liabilities. Every form signed, every trail leading straight to their fingerprints and no one else's. And because vanity was the altar they truly worshipped, I arranged the sequence so their reputation would feel the first cut. The phone calls from fraud departments, the polite but relentless investigator at the door, the liens on the cars and the house they loved to brag about. Piece by luxurious piece, the borrowed empire would crumble in public. The plane ticket to my new life had been booked for that same morning. They canceled it hours earlier, of course, draining the final credit line that still carried my name. They thought that was checkmate. I no longer needed the flight. I needed to watch the exact second the board flipped. I found them lounging in arrivals, arms crossed, waiting to drink in my defeat. They always appeared in person for the kill. Mom's smile went razor-thin the moment she saw me walking toward them dry-eyed. Dad lifted his chin, braced for tears or shouting, whatever scene he had scripted in his head. I said nothing. I simply turned my phone so they could read the screen. Notification 1 slid in, fraud report received and processed, case active. Notification 2, unauthorized account access terminated, funds secured. Notification 3 arrived like a guillotine. Subjects of investigation have been contacted. Interviews scheduled. They watched each line appear live. Confusion first, then the slow bloom of understanding, then the gray creep of terror. Mom's lips went bloodless. Dad's telltale muscle in his cheek began to jump, the one that only danced when the trap snapped shut on him. You turned us in, Mom breathed, barely audible over the airport din. I documented you, I answered, voice level. There's a difference. Dad took one threatening step forward, but the bluster collapsed halfway. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Perfectly, I said. I ended the chapter where you were allowed to wound me. Around us, travelers streamed past, dragging suitcases, calling hellos, completely unaware that a small universe was imploding in the space between 3 people. I turned my back on their stammered threats, their sudden bargains, their pleas. The words bounced off me like hail against glass. Outside, the winter air struck my face and felt purified. I walked to the bus bay, not out of necessity now, but because the choice was mine to make. Freedom rarely arrives in a private jet. Sometimes it wears scuffed shoes and smells of diesel, and it waits patiently while the architects of your pain finally carry the full weight of the ruin they designed. They had told me to walk home, so I did, just not down the road they had in mind. When the bus sighed to a stop and the doors folded open, I stepped on lighter than I had ever been. I paid the fare with a card that finally, truly belonged only to me. As the city slid past the window, I didn't look back. There was nothing behind me worth seeing anymore.